No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. The town of Berlin will use best efforts to post an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's webpage, the town's YouTube channel, and approved minutes will be posted to mytowngovernment.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to attend the virtual meeting may attend via the Zoom webinar platform in one of two ways, with both audio and video access, or by telephone audio only. Should any board member have technical difficulties and/or lose access to the meeting will recess for a period of time to see whether access can be restored. If not, the meeting will be continued to another date agreed to by a majority of the board or adjourned until our next scheduled meeting. And we'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. We have approval of the December 21st open session meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion or a
Motion to accept?
question?
Second.
All right. Hearing nothing else, we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Margaret, do we have any correspondence?
There is no new correspondence this week.
Okay. General public comment. I don't see any hands. I think we've got Eloise still here on our screen.
I think Mary just dropped out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Do
Mary
you still
left.
see Mary?
No.
No,
Oh, okay.
she was in a new location.
There she is.
There she is.
She's back.
Okay.
These are technical difficulties.
What are the technical difficulties? Did you all get knocked off too?
No,
No.
just
Oh.
you.
Oh, okay. Just me.
Just you. And Eloise is still here on the screen, but I think she's also in the attendees.
I'm still trying to
Yes.
connect my laptop. I'm on my phone, so sorry.
Oh, Janet's hand just went up.
Okay.
Okay. And Mary, I just made you co-host of the meeting.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that because my signal is not stable. I think that's,
Well, I'm still host, so I think that'll be okay, right?
right, if you spread out, yeah, that's fine if I'm co-host.
Okay.
I cannot connect my laptop. I don't know.
All right, so I'm gonna promote, let's see, Janet. Oh, wait a minute, Janet. All right, Janet, if you could just unmute. Oh, there you are.
I just wanted to say I lost connection too, so, but I'm
Okay.
back. So I
Okay.
don't know what happened.
Huh, okay. All right.
Okay. You want me to continue?
I think you're all set to continue.
Okay. Then if there's no public comment, since we're all getting dropped off, we'll move on to the general department update, which is fire and EMS.
I don't see Chief here.
You see Dave though, so is Dave standing in for chief?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe Chief's having a little difficulty. I don't see, Mary, do you see, oh, does anybody see?
No.
Trying to connect, unfortunately.
Well, we can come back to the report when he is here.
Okay, and I don't see Dean Tran here.
I don't either.
Mm-mm.
Huh, okay.
Margaret, you up?
I was gonna say, Mark, do you want to do a little bit of your report? We can go back to it when we get the others here.
You want to do that, Margaret?
Sure, I just have to find it. Okay, first of all, on the board and committee handbook, which is not on the agenda tonight, but I just want to give updates. I was tasked with giving it a whirl to try to finish it. So I circulated it to departments for their reviews. There are still a few blanks with, in particular, on the appointing authorities chart. So we still have several missing charges and compositions for committees, and hopefully a little bit of research in historical documents would be able to locate those. I have also added, let me just touch on a couple of things here. There were a couple of comments that I addressed. Chris had added a paragraph regarding improving communications between boards and committees. So I tidied that up. That's on page 10 now under section 4.3.
I still found, I looked at it again today and I still found a typo in my paragraph.
I actually, if you
I know,
look,
I saw what you did. That's fine. But
okay,
I think I had an extra of or something.
okay. There'll be still a little bit of cleanup to do.
Yeah.
On page 13, under section 5.9 general guidelines, I have added a reference to the board's public comments policy and the code of conduct and ethics for boards and committees. So I'm going to add a little notation that is included in the appendix to the handbook. I have put the listing of appendix contents on page 21. And as it was referenced before, it does now include the Berlin's Code of Conduct and Ethics for boards and committees and the public comment guidelines. I still have to include the official external communications guidelines. So I just haven't included that yet. And then I moved the sources of information to the last page just as a reference. So there's progress on it. And hopefully I'll get a little feedback from departments, and that'll be done very soon. Thank you for your work on it, Peg and Chris.
Margaret, when did you give them to give feedback back?
Oh, I don't know. I sent it last week. I can't remember if I gave them drop dead. Maybe I did. I don't know. I'll have to look, Peg, and find out when I gave them till. I don't expect too much since this is relevant to boards and committees, but I'm sure there'll be a few comments.
Is there still I think we still need to format it a bit.
Yeah, there still needs to be some
I think there was
formatting
some
done.
different font in one area or something.
I'm rusty on my table of contents, content controls too. I haven't done it in quite a while, so I have to put a few links in there too. So yeah, there's still some formatting to be done.
Okay.
Now on the benefits consulting, the board accepted General Law Chapter 32B sections 21 through 23 last week, which would allow the town flexibility, or give the town flexibility and cost-saving plan design changes. However, the acceptance of that statute, and I'll reiterate again, and I know the board is aware of this, acceptance of the statute doesn't automatically initiate the process by which plan design changes could be implemented. So the board would need to determine by January 4th whether it wants to proceed for potential changes to become effective on July 1, 2021, so effective for FY22. And if not, there's, the rush, we don't have to follow that calendar the benefits consultant gave the board strictly to the T. I wanted to also note that the Insurance Advisory Committee is an advisory committee that's composed primarily of active employees from various town departments. It currently does not have a quorum of members, and so even if it could be posted, the committee can't yet meet until there is a quorum of members. So I've reached out to town departments to ask interested employees if they'd like to submit a volunteer application form to the select board's office to serve on the IAC. The select board would appoint members, active employees to the IAC. Units, bargaining units can designate members, and there are 2 of those in town, but the others would be appointed by the select board. So that's why we're doing the volunteer application form. And then those applications will be presented to the select board in the near future for appointments. Let's see, today is the day that the library septic IFB has been reissued. So there is already interest coming in from contractors. So my hope is that because it's winter, we've caught contractors in a slower time, and maybe there'll be more interest in doing the project and more bids received. So bids must be received by January 28th. So again, bid packets were made available today. All the required state and local notices have been posted. All the written comments that were received by December 21st on the Shared Streets and Spaces pilot project have been compiled in abbreviated form and uploaded to the town's website. So folks just need to go to the main town page and go under news, and there's a link there to the compiled table of not table of contents, table of comments. Liquor license, just an upcoming thing to be aware of. Liquor license application guidelines were approved by the board last year. And so recently there's been some discussion on things that the board might consider including in those guidelines. And I think it's best in order to not do one-offs, in order to not require one-offs, in order to memorialize the additional requirements. We'll be submitting the guidelines in red line form with suggested additions, including things like requiring the payment of taxes and fees before issuance of licenses, minimum insurance thresholds, on-site manager contact information, inspection standards, tip certification for managers, hours of operation on license applications, etc. The Civic CMS web portal virtual training has been confirmed for Thursday, January 14th from 12 noon to 4 p.m. That's going to be recorded. So if any board or committee members or department staff cannot attend that day, it's going to be a recording that we'll be able to reference back to as needed. And finally, on the plastic ban bylaw, I had hoped to present something to the board tonight on implementation and enforcement. I did do a little research over the weekend and found that in many cases, towns designate their health departments, their boards of health, or police officers as enforcement authorities under the bylaw. I know ours says that it could be done as part of the normal inspection process. However, there are certain retailers that don't undergo a normal inspection process, so we may have to consider additional enforcement authorities. I also found that one of the towns I researched allowed a single 6-month extension, which I thought was very interesting and kind of relevant to COVID. So my hope is for next meeting, I'll bring you a proposal to consider regarding a timeline in which enforcement will not be heavy-handed and just allow a little more time for businesses to kind of get situated with under the new plastic bag ban. And I think that's all I have in my report. Do we have,
Okay.
have attendees? Good.
Yes. I think
Eloise has her hand up.
Eloise does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When I was going
So
through your handbook, the only thing that sort of stuck out at me is you were talking about I read it as a maximum of 2 or 3 terms. And I would like you to reconsider, because then you lose a lot of institutional memory. I realize having everybody on the board continuously isn't good, but it shouldn't be a disqualifying factor.
We don't have any bylaw like that, do we?
In the handbook,
Yeah.
that's where it talked about it.
Okay, I'll have to, Eloise, if you could point me to the right page later, I'll take a look at that.
Okay, I'll see it. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Mary's got her fingers up here. All right. Mary, can you move Dean Tran up here? Are you there?
We're all looking at Mary's pedicure,
There we
or her
go.
manicure, see how she's good.
It's more like her fist.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Senator Ed.
Hi, how's everyone?
We're all
Well,
doing pretty well. And how are you doing?
How was your Christmas? I'm okay. I'm doing okay.
That's good. I think we all had a pretty good Christmas, didn't we?
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
quiet.
mm,
Quiet.
Well, the good thing is that we had rain instead of snow. Just imagine if the weather was cold. That would
Yeah.
have been. They say that if the temperature was freezing, an inch of rain equates to about 15 inches of snow, and we had close
Right.
to 3 inches of rain.
It would have been buried.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, did you have any updates for us before I read a little something to you, Dean? How's everything going?
I think I sent to town administrator Nodowick's all the updates that she needed in
Oops,
regard
okay.
to all the legislation.
Okay. Dean, I'm sorry, I might have missed that. When was that?
So,
That had to do with the legislation changes to the town charter that you needed us to do.
Okay, okay.
just say, I thought
I
you
will
forwarded
look-
it along, because I thought I read it.
Oh, maybe I did.
I could make it up too. I did a lot of reading today of emails.
But I think the other side note is that the budget is moving along well. Everything that I saw that has anything to do that would benefit the communities that I serve in my district, funded at least by the minimum. And we're in the process right now, just going through the governor's vetoes. We went through his vetoes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week. We had a session today. We expect to have session tomorrow and the day after as well. Tomorrow, we're expected to go through the last batch of his vetoes, as well as outside section that he vetoed. One of the more controversial part of the outside section that he vetoed was the a provision that was put into the budget that has to do with abortion. So that was taken up by the House today, and that will be taken up by the Senate tomorrow.
Excuse me, through the chair. Dean, funding, AGA funding remains intact. We shouldn't expect any surprises later this fiscal year. You don't think, do you think?
No,
I hope not.
No, there's no surprises at all. I'm very enthusiastic about the funding that went into 2021 budget. There were no cuts to local aid. There were no reduction in school funding. School funding was level funded plus $107 million on top of what was funded last year. That was requested by the teachers union and basically all the communities in my district as well, asking not to allow reduction in education funding. So we were able to level fund that and include $107 million on top of that. So there's no surprises. I'm very surprised that we were able to pass a budget that was 3 to 4% higher than last year. So we pretty much increased the budget rather than reduce anything in the budget,
Mm.
given
You did
the
dip in-
pandemic.
And you did dip into, you had to dip into rainy day funds, the state's rainy day funds to cover
We did
the
all
gaps.
we had to dip in almost 50% of the stabilization fund, but we expect the federal federal aid to come in to help alleviate the problems that we had to use the stabilization fund for.
That's wonderful. And through the chair, and Dean, yes, you did send an email to me and the board on December 19th regarding the legislation. So thank you very much. How quickly I forget.
Well, Dean, we have a little something that, and I want to thank Mary for putting this together for us, that we wanted to read to thank you for all your help in the town of Berlin. So start by saying, Dear Dean, upon your arrival in office in January 2018, you have remained a loyal guardian of the collective interests of the town of Berlin. Before you leave office next month, we want to pause to thank you for your efforts and cooperation in representing Berlin on Beacon Hill, as well as the communities of Bolton, Clinton, Fitchburg, Gardner, Lancaster, Leominster, Lunenburg, Sterling, Townsend, and Westminster. You were born in Saigon, Vietnam, and emigrated with your family to the United States at the age of 4. You spent 2 years in a refugee camp fleeing oppression and in search of freedom before a Catholic priest in Clinton sponsored your family to move to our area in 1980. Your family relocated to Fitchburg, and you graduated from Fitchburg High School in 1986 and earned a bachelor's degree from Brandeis University. You and your wife, Carrie, reside in Fitchburg, where you have raised your 4 children, Isabel, Olivia, Madeline, and Dean. You lent your 25 years of private sector management and leadership experience to your tenure in public service, which began in 2005. In 2005, you were the first Vietnamese American elected to the Massachusetts legislature and the first minority individual elected to the Fitchburg City Council. After 12 years as a city councilor, you won the December 17th special election to replace outgoing state senator Jennifer Flanagan. Over your 3 years in office, you have advocated for low taxes and responsible spending. You've served in numerous leadership roles and committees at the State House. And you have assisted the town of Berlin with locating funds for special town projects that have made a meaningful impact here on the ground, including $18,000 for a utility terrain vehicle for joint use by the Berlin Police and the Berlin Fire EMS departments, $25,000 to install an artisan well, pump system, and electrical service for the Agricultural Commission's community garden on River Road West, $60,000 for a new Council on Aging van, replacing the prior van, which was purchased used. The new COA van is covering a lot of territory and providing fully accessible and safe transportation for Berlin seniors as they make doctor's visits and perform weekly food shopping runs. $100,000 in a pending request for mid-fiscal year 2021 funding for improvements to South Common, including reconstruction replacement of the tennis and basketball courts on South Street, and a new improved snack shack at the South Common soccer fields aside the gazebo and the Berlin Memorial School. You have also assisted as the town has carried forward key pieces of legislation for the town, including but not limited to creation of the town's new governance structure and creation of the town administrator position. Full K through 12 regionalization of Berlin-Boylston School District, the retention of Fire EMS Chief Kenneth Clark beyond his 65th birthday, a legislative attempt to cure and accept the warrant and 2019 annual town meeting bylaw votes now in place in the town. On behalf of the residents of the town of Berlin, we thank you for your steadfast service to the town and your larger Worcester Middlesex County District. All the very best to you in your next venture. Sincerely, Christine Keefe, Margaret Stone, and R. Scott Hawkins. You've come a long way.
Thank you, Dean.
Yeah.
And we do thank you.
Definitely.
Been
We
great.
do thank you very much for all you've done to help us. And we expect to be seeing you elsewhere sooner rather than later, I hope.
Well,
Oh, here comes his announcement. What are you running for? I hear there's a seat open in Berlin for the selectmen in May. It's a great town to move to.
Here we go.
well, thank you. Thank you to everyone. And, especially thank you to Town Administrator Notowicz, who have been an incredible partner with me in getting things done for the town of Berlin. Especially thank you to Chairwoman Keefe and Selectman Hawkins and Stone. I'm taken back by your kind words and thank you very much. I came to this country, like you said, at the age of 4 with my parents and siblings. We came with nothing except for the clothes on our backs. I lived in Clinton and then Fitchburg. The communities were there for us when we needed help. And that was the reason why I got into politics, to serve the communities and to do everything that I can to bring resources and fundings back to the communities. And this is one of the ways to me to give back to the communities. I appreciate that you brought up some of the things that I've done. I'm very proud. In over a little 2 years, I was able to secure over $36 million in grants and budget and earmark and bond earmarks, and help pass legislation that are important to the communities. I could not have done all that without your help and your friendship. And thank you very much for your partnership, everyone in the town of Berlin. And when I travel around the district and people ask me, how are you able to pronounce the town of Berlin as if you live in the town? That's because I live only a few distance away from the town. I grew up in Clinton. I'm a Clintonian. I know what small town needs are, and I'm very proud to be able to work with all of you to deliver the things that we've been able to deliver for the town. And I look forward to continuing our working relationship in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So do we.
And happy holidays and have a wonderful new year.
Yes.
And,
Thank you,
Thanks.
Senator
and
Tran.
wish your family our very best.
I will.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dean. Stay safe.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so
too.
much.
And Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You
happy
too.
New Year.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Oh,
Well, I, through the chair, I texted the chief, but I have not heard back from him. So,
And I think our 7:30 presenters are here.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, they are.
Okay. Then we will move on to the Historical Commission.
Well, that brought a tear to my eye.
mhm.
I know, Mary, you're good at that. You're very good at.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
you are.
What was it? Barbara Walters is the one who could, was she, or was it Oprah?
Yeah. That was
It
Barbara
always
Walters who
makes
could bring
somebody
rulers.
cry.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just so heartening to hear stories, like that. It's just
Yeah,
shows that there's good in the world, which is great.
yes. All right. We've got the historical commission here. And I think our main objective tonight is just to visit visit the Bullard House Structural Survey Report, next steps, and the move of the collection to the curatorial building. So why don't we start with the Bullard House, the Structural Survey Report. I did have a chance to look through it today. Margaret, did you want to start, or do you?
No, I think
Or do you
the
want-
historical commission has received a copy, and if you'd like them to start first, they can
Sure.
give their
At our
perspective.
meeting this month, we started, first of all, we'd all had it, we'd all read it, and we discussed some various aspects of it at our meeting this month. We unanimously agreed to put together a plan during the month until our next meeting, where we deal with the exterior shell of the building, particularly doors and windows and some of the things that were recommended there, so that we get storms or at least temporary additional coverings to make things more efficient. And those shell items are the things that we wanted to concentrate on first. And therefore we plan to, our intention at our January meeting is that we will complete that proposal and present it to you following that meeting. And hopefully be able to spend some of the funds that are extant for Bullard House renovation on those things. Storm doors, storm windows, etc. In some cases, we'll be doing permanent things, and in other cases, perhaps temporary ones, because there's enough work to be done, for instance, in frames or something like that around, that we don't want to put a lot of expensive attention to it until after we've taken more general steps on a rebuild of frames and the things that need it. But all of those openings are to be addressed. The other thing is that we observed in the report that there are a few things that Tim needs more information about. I think that we can produce more information or more evidence to him as to work that has been done in the past, so that he can have a clearer picture of that. There are a few things that, for instance, like the foundation around the back of the house, which most of it has been worked on by licensed contractors. And I need to talk to the building commissioner and see what is in his files on some of those, so that we can produce some evidence for Tim as to what things perhaps do not need to be addressed further in this report. So we've got a few of those things that we want to tidy up that'll make the report a little bit more accurate and up to date. He didn't have access to some of that, and at this point we have a clearer picture of what things he didn't have access to. So we're going to try to get that information for him.
Margaret, did you have a question?
I have a question. Barry and Historical Commission, if information is found in the building commissioner's file that work has been done on some of the items that Tim has findings on here, do you think that's going to change his findings?
In cases where he didn't have a means to examine them, yes.
Okay, okay,
If it's something that he was able to examine, no.
okay.
But if it's something that he wasn't able to examine, there's also an issue about water in the cellar, and I can explain to him the source of most of that water and why and when it started and so forth. And we've had 2 or 3 different times that we had a plan for a handicap parking space, or with the big parking lot for the town hall up back with the ramp down to the house. If those projects had been completed as planned, it would probably have taken care of that problem. But the problem is still with us because we never built the big parking lot, and we haven't yet gotten a handicap space built next to the house. If we get one of those projects done, then we'll deal with the drainage issue that is really the cause for the water in the cellar. And we've had 2 or 3 ways that we thought that was going to be solved, and then for one reason or another, those haven't come to fruition as of now. But we want to do that because some of what he's concluded is based on being uncertain of what the source of that water is. And I actually do know what the source of it is and why. It's only occasional. It only happens when we have cloudbursts, when there's just huge amounts of water down in a short time. That's when it happens. The rest of the time, it's not an ongoing issue with medium to light rain. So those are the things that we want to make sure he has the information on.
So Margaret, I have a question for you. Let's say that Richard, and there's Mr. Hanks, hi Mr. Hanks, nice to see you, is able to find some of the documentation that Barry is referencing. I would assume then that a rewrite of the survey needs to be done, amendment to it, and if so, where's the money to pay for it? Because I'm kind of thinking Tim's probably not going to do it for free.
I think that's sort of don't you think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves though? Because there may not need to be a rewrite.
Plus, it would be entirely up to Tim as to whether or not he feels comfortable amending the document in the first place.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So June, you had your hand up for a second. Can you unmute yourself?
I just want to ask Barry if we can put these concerns into a written format so that Tim and others will have the benefit of these points.
Oh, of course.
And can we have that figured out by our January meeting?
Oh, I would hope so. And if there's something is still hanging for one more month while we research it, perhaps. The thing that I know that a couple of the more recent jobs that we had done were under individual separate building permits. And I'm hoping there's enough description in there in those documents that might be helpful to Tim so that he could have more confidence about some of those areas in the back of the house. Richard.
Good evening, everybody again. So I can easily go to the file and pull out what was permitted and see if anybody submitted plans to kind of detail out what the scope of work was. So I can easily pull that information for you. Reading the report, it seemed like the further analysis is to see if there's more work that needs to be added to the scope of things, if I was correct. It's not to roll out things that are already on the report. I think the report kind of stood for itself, unless I'm missing something. And then the other thing I want to add in is I know, Barry, you mentioned that you like to wrap up the exterior by putting storms on, storm windows, storm doors, but according to, if I read the report correctly, that would be at the final phase after new windows and doors are put on, because you could be putting storm windows onto a window that you're going to replace, and then you'll be pulling it back off, and unless the window that you replace is the same exact size, you've wasted efforts, unless I'm missing something.
That
was one of my questions too, I guess, was that the order it should be done. Margaret, did you have?
Yeah, there's no question in his report that securing the outside shell of the building from the weather is imperative and as soon as possible. And I remember when he was on site, he was saying the same thing. If you don't secure the outside of the building, you're going to damage everything else in there. So I think it looks to me that it's high on his priority to secure the outside shell of the building from the weather. That's all.
In
Well,
regard to windows and storm windows, if we do the storm, put the storms on, as long as the frames are okay, the outside frames. If we put the storms on, that enables us to pull window sash out and work on them. A number of there's three windows in particular, and perhaps a fourth, that need some basic glazing and cleaning up and puttying and all that kind of thing. And if we once have the storms on, once we get past the coldest winter, we can start to take those sashes out and work on them so that they can be brought up to snuff. The other issue, and we haven't talked about this yet, and we will, is whether we need to change windows or whether we can preserve and use the ones that are there. Virtually none of the windows that are there are original. There could be one someplace, and there's a couple that are really antique that are old. But most of the windows in that house were replaced in the 1950s. In fact, Scott, your grandfather replaced them.
I was about to say, that sounds like a Flores and Russell project.
Yeah, they went through and replaced most of the windows in that period. And we haven't, as a commission, discussed it, so I can't represent that it's not everybody's opinion. But there's not a lot of reason for us to replace all the windows if they can be made serviceable. But we'll have to talk about that.
Through the chair, would it, Barry and Historical Commission, would it be possible to at least put plastic over the broken windows up top, since we are heating the building now? There's like a couple of broken panes, I think, on the top. I don't know if it's the northwest side or something. Would it be possible to put plastic over that to try to seal them a little bit for now, temporarily? I mean, using shrink wrap or something?
Somebody can put it upstairs. It really should go on the outside.
Right.
That was part of our thing, is in some cases we might put plastic on as the temporary thing, if it's a window that's going to need a lot of repair later.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what our report will cover that's what our plan that we're putting together will address.
I mean, sorry, go ahead, Peg.
No, Scott, go. I'll come in after you.
I was just wondering, because I read the report, obviously it's an old building. I want to hear if there was anything surprising to any of the Historic Commission from that report. I mean, we knew there were older windows, we knew there were some issues, but was there anything sort of surprising that makes the building any sort of worse or better shape than you had believed it was?
No surprises?
I would say not much.
June or Elaine?
I think that we considered the foundation area that was worked on by David Litchwell to be sound, but Tim has taken issue with that, and we may be able to clarify with the permitting that the foundation, at least in most of that area, is sound.
So it looks, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I believe Tim, who wrote the report, may be in the audience. And I'd like to have Mary move him up.
Oh, you see it, good.
And Elaine, did you want to also do you have something you wanted to say too?
Well, I was concerned about the not wanting to dig up all around the foundation, but maybe we can address that with Tim. I don't know.
Okay.
We're not 100% sure this is the Tim, but we'll find out.
No.
There you
Tim?
go.
Right.
He was unmuted for a moment.
You have to unmute, Tim.
That is him.
Hey,
Unmute.
But he's still muted.
You know, it's a family effort. Not yet.
There
There
you
we
There he
go.
is.
Okay,
hi,
there
Tim.
we go. Yes, it's definitely a
evening.
family thing. So what's the immediate question?
Well, we had said that that there were some aspects of things, particularly like around the foundation, the back of the house and some of those things that we're going to try to produce some additional documentation for you so that you could come to a more confident conclusion about some of those areas. That was the key thing that we were thinking.
Yep, that would be helpful.
And I can also give you a lot of information about the water and the cellar issue and what its source is and why.
Well, I'm not sure that's going to affect what needs to be done to it, but that's more information never hurts.
Yeah.
Okay, were there other questions for Tim?
Well,
Peg?
for me, I mean, that was, I know there's a lot of discussion about fixing the doors and the windows, but to me, if you build a house, you need a strong foundation. And if you don't have a strong foundation, then it doesn't really matter what's above it. So, I mean, that's really one of Tim's first paragraphs is the foundation was not particularly well constructed to begin with and suffered over time. So, you know, I guess it's a question for Barry and Elaine in June. Where does that fall onto your project list? Because there was, you know, Elaine mentioned that there might be some information out there. But I just want to make sure that that's addressed first before you start getting into windows and doors.
Would that be the correct way to go about it?
The windows and doors, I mean, the storm windows and such, to me, I mean, that's somewhere between temporary and permanent anyway. I mean, everybody, you know, can look at this and see that this isn't going to happen in a week or a month or a year. So storm windows, whether they stay on the building permanently or even temporarily, allow work to be done. They allow light in the building. Plastic just, you know, you know, unless you're only worried about it for a week, plastic just doesn't cut it. And, you know, somebody would be up there every week fixing the plastic. So it just, you know, that, you know, in terms of the whole project, you know, that you'd end up spending a fortune in plastic. So the storms, in my view, can be either temporary or permanent, depending on, you know, what people decide about the looks and the, you know, what degree of authenticity they want to go to. I mean, they do provide protection for what's there. And when you've got broken windows and broken doors and stuff like that, they do keep the weather out. They allow sash doors and whatever else to be worked on. They allow light, they allow access. So that was kind of my thought on that. The foundation, that's exactly, I mean, you need to structural work, foundation work, those kind of things. In the big scheme of things, that's what comes first. You know, so that you're not backtracking and redoing work, you know, paying to have work done twice, you know, because you've not done it in the proper order. So structural work and foundation work comes first, you know, except for things like, yeah, just covering up holes and, you know, broken windows and that kind of stuff, securing the building. Other than that, the structural stuff always comes first.
If we had a leaky roof that would even come before that because so much
Yep.
deterioration would come from it.
But you don't.
Fortunately, that's fixed.
We've got enough. We don't have to. Yep, no, good, solid roof is a good thing.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is once we've talked about a few of these things we can give more information on, and also that we've secured the openings a little better, that I think the foundation issues would obviously be among the next things we do, as well as the relatively few main structural pieces that are mentioned. And at least one of those was already in the plan that we had, that we placed before the selectmen a couple of years ago. So, I mean, we've known that was coming anyway.
Well, and I did explore some of the other, the other methods for dealing with foundations. I did explore some of those other things. And what I put in there, I felt was sort of the most practical solution in this case. A lot of times they jack up a building and just pour a foundation under it. That's going to be difficult in this situation because of the ledge behind the house. In order to jack up the building, they have to put steel under it, and that ledge is in the way. They would have to get the steel under there with jacks underneath the steel, and with the ledge there, there's not enough room. And so the alternative for jacking up the whole house would be to go through the house. And I just didn't think anybody was quite ready for that. Inside, you can't pour a foundation inside because you don't have access to a inside wall all the way around. So kind of what you're left with is attacking it, mostly from the outside. And that's what I put in the report.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Did you?
Ken, the survey was done. I thought it was done really well. It read easily and it definitely defined priorities very well.
Thank you.
And I definitely love the font.
It's
All right. Richard, did you have anything else you wanted to add about the report?
No, as you all stated, it was very well written. He did an excellent job. Cost-wise, I think he's pretty much on the mark as far as what it would cost to do those items as he described. The only thing is I don't know where you're going to divert the water to if you did have some kind of drainage around the outside, because the house practically sits on the road. So that's something that had to be looked in. I don't know if there's a storm drain along the street that could be tied into. So that'd be the only dilemma that I would see is, where's all that water going to go? Because, right now it pools in the basement. So once you rectify that problem, what are you going to do with the water? And I'm sure Dave Smith doesn't want it on the street. So that's something that has to be determined as to where can you just divert that water to.
If we can divert it away from the north lawn, it will not be in the cellar.
Okay.
Because it goes in, it pools on the north lawn when there's a great cloudburst. And that's when it goes in the cellar. And that's something that developed after we put the water in from the town hall over there, because the fill that was used at that time was rather fine material. And the water, when it pools on it, it just right down and puts it in the cellar. And before that change took place, we didn't have water in the cellar.
Okay. So maybe it could be attacked from that side first and see what's there. To your point, Barry, maybe it was more of a clay material, so it didn't just percolate right through and follow the pipe.
If we could try to address the water getting onto the lawn out there, or get it so it'll drain on the surface of the lawn out in other directions, I think we can prove that the water in the cellar isn't going to be significant. And as I said, we've had 2 or 3 different plans which would have solved that for us, but in each case, for one reason or another, those things didn't get done. So we're gonna have to address it in some way to get it so it just doesn't get pooling on the lawn on the north side.
Elaine,
Yeah, has a civil engineer looked at it? I mean, given, looked at the whole picture?
I don't know.
We looked at it a little bit with Keith, and at one point I had it so it wasn't doing it much. And then Dennis remodeled the driveway a bit, and I haven't been able to stop it since. But if we can figure out a way to deal with, and when we were going to do the parking lot up back, we were going to put in drainage that would go into the town storm drains and drain away. But that parking lot we had to delete because that was the thing that was putting us over in the bids for the elevator project. So if we look at it, and maybe Richard and Dave Smith and stuff, maybe we can look at it and we can figure something out that will keep the water from getting on that piece of lawn and pooling and going in the cellar.
Okay.
So I have a question for Tim. With the water damage that's in the house now down below, obviously that's needs to be up on the priority list as well. I mean, is there lots of damage caused by the water that needs to be fixed? I mean, I'm looking in your recommendations, some paragraph about, pouring of foundations in that, and I'm just trying to see where damage might have been done because of the water.
Well, the damage, the damage from water in the basement is more, it's more of an overall thing. I would say aside from a leaky roof, probably moisture coming up out of the ground, probably causes more rot to an old house like that than anything else. When people go into a 200-year-old house and, they are always dragging me down to the basement to ask me if these beams are any good, because that's always where where you just get overall moisture and sponginess and mold and that kind of thing, which is all destructive of wood, without water pouring over it. That kind of moisture in a building in general is an issue. That, I would say, that is a problem. It's not doing the foundation any good. And I have no idea how much of the buildup on the floor in there is just dirt that's washed in there over the years. I mean, the real floor might be a foot down from there, for all I know. You can, if you're inside the cellar, any wall that you look at, you can see evidence of water coming through that wall. And that's all, that's all the way around. And it does, just the general damage that it does to the woodwork and, moisture control, climate control in the whole house is, that alone is a large part of what you're trying to address.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Richard.
Yeah, to Tim's point, we really do need to take care of the moisture problem in the basement, because as you progress with the project and you start insulating and you make it more airtight, then that right now it's an old drafty leaky building that has probably 20 air exchanges per hour. So moisture buildup in it isn't that great right now, but once you start sealing this thing up and you fix the windows, you fix the doors, you insulate it and make it airtight, that moisture has no place to go but to start damaging the wood. So to Tim's point, you really need to get the moisture management under control before you go too far into the project, my opinion.
Yeah. Margaret.
So Tim recommends an exterior approach. First, he says structural improvement is definitely improvement is definitely called for the foundation. And he kind of gives, Tim, when you laid out these bullet points, these are in order in which you would recommend the work being done, correct? So the excavation would happen
so.
first. Excuse me?
I said, I believe so.
Yeah, so
I think that's what I did.
Yeah, so you say excavate the exterior of the foundation, then repair, mortar, and waterproof the stonework below grade, then put in drainage around the whole perimeter, and then add a poured concrete floor when all the rest is done. So sounds like you're recommending that those be done in order.
Yes, and there's probably some inside repair, because I mean, there's stones that have clearly fallen out of the wall inside the cellar as well. So, that some minor stuff like that needs to be done. I mean, if it was up to me, I would clean a lot of junk out of that cellar. I mean, I'd probably dig down the floor a little bit. I'd remove that old brickwork, just so that in the future people can work on things down there, and it's sort of like everything that's been done down there over the last 50 years. The remnants of that have stayed down in the cellar, and it's just kind of cluttery and hard to move around. And in the process of doing inside work, I think I would remove some of that stuff as well.
Elaine.
Yes, one of the things we talked about when we were looking at the house initially was outside access to the basement instead of those horrible cellar stairs. Making a bulkhead. And I know that wasn't part of your report, but wouldn't that be the time to do something like that?
Sir, yeah, yes, obviously. The hardest part in that house and with that cellar is just picking a location where you could do it and it's not going to be in the way of something else, or something else isn't going to be in the way of it. Right. Would be hard on the driveway side. On the other end of the house, coming into that end of the cellar, you've got an oil tank in the way. You could put it in the front of the house. Usually nobody wants to look at that kind of stuff. It could go in the front. But that's why I'm saying it's that from the standpoint of being in the cellar, it's pretty crowded and it could use some, it could use less clutter in there. And, I think that's one of those, it would certainly be, a practical thing to have. It'd be a great that way. It's going to be hard to decide where to put it no matter what.
For those of you that aren't familiar with the cellar, and this isn't any particular comment on any of what we've been talking about, but it's important to understand that there's only cellar under the front rooms of the house that's full cellar at all. The rest of it is not even enough for crawl space in general. It's just a little bit of space. In some cases, no more than the stringers of the floor. That's all there is, and then there's dirt. Because of the amount of either ledge or boulders that are in the ground in that area. So it's not like you have an awful lot of choice for some of these solutions, as Tim was just saying. It's pretty limited what you can do, but that doesn't mean we can't investigate it. And his idea of going on the outside and sealing up with concrete and stuff is very sensible around the front part of the cellar where the full cellar is. Makes good sense. Around the back of the house, there is no cellar really, so it wouldn't be much use there.
Elaine, did you have another comment?
Yes, just one. In part of the CPA funding, if we use any CPA money for this project, any of these projects, there's a requirement in a restoration that work must comply with the U.S. Secretary of the Interior standard for rehabilitation. And they have very specific wording on how to do all different things if you're doing a rehab.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably familiar with that, Tim?
Not in minute detail, Elaine, because yeah, there's so much detail there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's-
but
it's-
no, I'm not familiar with the detail on foundation work. You know,
Yeah,
that,
it's, yeah, there's 252 pages. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a lot. But they address a lot of details, you know, that anybody would be working on.
mhm.
So it has to be done under those standards.
Well, I guess somebody's going to have to read those 252 pages then.
If you're using those funds.
Yes.
Rich,
June.
did you have something?
June.
The word rehab, is that different from repair?
In the context, I'm sorry, through the chair, in the context of CPA, absolutely. Repairs cannot be made under CPA funding. Rehabilitation and upgrades can be made through CPA funding. So in the context of CPA, rehabilitation would be the key as opposed to repairs and maintenance, for example.
Okay. All right. Do we want to have the historical come back sometime after their next meeting, or have Barry give us an update?
Well, we plan to come back when we have completed this
A
initial
plan?
thing on the shelf. And then following that, we'll be trying to address some of the other matters in the report.
Okay. Did you want to touch on the how the move of the collection to the curatorial building is going?
If you're ready to go on to that, we will.
Tim, thank you very much for attending and for your work on the
Appreciate it,
report.
Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tim.
Welcome.
Regarding the collection move, we've actually moved a significant amount of material already. We've cleared a lot of our shelves and moved material up to the new building and very carefully stacked it in different groups, depending on what shelves it goes on. And hopefully in the next week or so, maybe we can get some help getting the shelves moved. I've got to talk to Margaret and see what we can arrange, perhaps between fire and highway. Perhaps they could help us with some of that. And we also have the possibility of some other people from the community helping. You need a low trailer or an open truck to move the shelves. They're 6 and 8 feet high, no matter how you put them in. And if we can get all the shelves moved that we now have empty, we can then get all those things taken care of, and we can start bringing more material up and again stacking it in preparation for another shelf move after that. June and I have worked a lot on it, and we've taken many loads of boxes and things up there. We have, I think, 3 file cabinets that we plan to move in this first wave also, while we have some people that can handle the weight. And then we'll move on to other things. One of the things I will say is that I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to anchor the shelving, some of the shelving in place, anchored into the wall or whatever, so that we'll take care of some of the issues we had with things being able to move. If we just have some anchors into the wall with each unit, we'll take care of it. We're not going to have the same kind of a big freestanding unit that we had in the room downstairs anyway. We're going to always have it in a corner or be in a position where we can do things to take care of it, so that we shouldn't have that stability problem. The other thing we've done is we've created an area in the loft upstairs for a lot of our big boxes that we used to have on top of the shelves. And so we're going to have a lot less of the heavy load on the top of the pile than we had in the room down at the town offices. Those things are stacked up in their own area upstairs, and will no longer be producing a top-heavy situation on sets of shelves.
Okay. June.
Just want to make clear that we can't do much else until we have help moving the shelving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've kind of gotten to the point where if we move any more, we won't be able to keep the groups of things discrete, and therefore it turns into chaos. So we're hopeful we can get that done before too much, within a few days. I did have a chance to speak to Chief Clark, and he said he's willing to help, but he said we really need somebody else that's got better vehicles for it. And I think that if we can come up with a cooperative date and get about 4 guys there for even an hour and a half, we can get a lot done.
Okay, I'm sure, Margaret, you'd be willing to coordinate that.
I can help out. I can help out with that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, regarding the shelves, Richard, is that something in building code that that would be addressed as far as shelving and weight bearing things and stuff like that, or no?
No, not really.
Okay.
I think Barry's probably got a good handle on shelf building by now.
Yeah.
He knows what not to do.
Learned a little lesson there.
So yeah, I can look at it when they're putting everything back together and stuff, but I know the way that Dave's crew had braced everything up with the stuff that's in the basement now, they did an excellent job resupporting that stuff. So as long as they maintain that same type of integrity, I think they're going to be in good shape. To Barry's point, they can anchor it to the wall somehow. So
good. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
And one other thing, how is the mini split working out? Is it taking the edge off? Yeah, good.
It seems to be working very well. I am concerned ultimately that we will probably want to put a little roof over it so that the eaves off the building won't be dripping on it constantly. I think that would be a little protection from the weather, not an enclosure, but just a roof so that the drips off the roof will go away from the building. Other than that, I think we should be fine.
You just have to be a little careful because those things really need to breathe. So like you said, you can't totally enclose them, but you got to be careful because they do need to breathe, and they are made to be in the weather. So I know I got a couple in the roof line drips on them. I look at them all the time, like, should I do something? And everybody says you best to leave them alone, but you can look at it, but don't fully enclose them too much because they do have to breathe.
I noticed over at 19 Carter that they've done this bit with the roof, and in all cases, you've got some space above it.
Yeah.
The roof isn't too close to it, so that it indeed can breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
Were we going to talk about the Hearst house, or did I make that up in my head somewhere? This month has been a blur.
I don't know. I don't have it on here, but
okay.
Next visit.
Is that for the next? Go ahead, Jerry.
I did send you all a fundraising brochure we did a while back, so that you get a little background on it and how it came to be where it is and all those kinds of things. Our intent is to put it right back where it was from 1973 to 2013. And, but we need to make sure we do a better foundation job than we did before. Originally it was, we just said, it was dug, the topsoil was dug out and some gravel was put on the surface so that it would have a dry feet, so to speak. And then it was set on stones, and over the 35 years or whatever, it sank on the stones. So what we're trying to do is come up with a method of supporting it better, which might be to dig a post hole, fill it with concrete, and put the stone on top of that, or it might be to use modern sonotubes or something like that. But we'll discuss that with Richard and with Tim Walheeder in terms of deciding exactly what we'll do. We had requested whether there was a post hole digger available at Highway, and they do have one. So we're going to look into that and see what help that will be. Meanwhile, I should see Richard and talk about what we'll need to do for a potential building permit, since while it's going back where it was and hopefully will be mostly like it was, we need to make sure that we're not running foul of other problems. And it is at the moment, it's a resurrected structure that isn't there right now. We did have, at the time that we placed it there was an issue about side yard because it's right against one of the property lines. And we were actually preparing a request for a variance for the Board of Appeals. And before we even got that accomplished, the Board of Appeals folks came back to us and said, well, you know, this is an educational use. It's basically a small shed, and it's being done as a historical educational use. And as an educational use, it's exempt to the zoning regulations. And on that basis, we didn't go any further with that. We just proceeded with it. We do have a plan of the burying ground with the location shown on it that we made at that time for that purpose, which I will provide to Richard. And we need to simply go through the process and talk as you would with any building project and talk about it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in regard to the ownership of the thing, we really would like to have the Historical Society own it until it's completed, at which time we could consider a transfer to the town happily, I think. But I don't want to get us into a situation where we can't have the Historical Society do the financial business and get the work done and pay for it without state laws and stuff getting messing us up in the potential expense. And that we can turn it to the town's title as soon as we get it done.
As we approach that time, I'm happy to work with you on that, on what it's going to take to transfer it back to the town and get it insured and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I think we'll touch base with you at a later date and see how things are going.
I will also say briefly that the location that we had it was very carefully worked out with John Nutting, who was cemetery superintendent in 1973. And so that it leaves room enough so a vehicle can still pass into the cemetery in that front corner and unload equipment and turn around and drive out. And if we put it anywhere else in that corner, it'll foul that possibility up. And the cemetery department really wants to maintain the ability to bring a vehicle in and out in that corner of the burying ground. And setting it back that way, away from the street. I mean, its original location was right up at right up where the sidewalk is. And we would not want it up there anyway, because it's just going to get all the splash and wet from the road and the snow plows and everything like that. It's much safer set back in that regard. So our plan is to put it in the same place it was. However, at Tim's recommendation, we want to make sure it's a good foot up off the ground so that there's room for air to circulate under it well and keep the framing underneath dry enough so that we won't be deteriorating it as we did what we had on it before. And other than that, I will say this, we would like to ask the board's permission, all right, Historical Society hat for a minute. We'd like to ask the board's permission for us to talk to Highway and figure out what they might be able to do to help us with the excavation, trying to sink some post holes or whatever there, if that's okay with the board.
That is an excavation on town property, so that's
Yeah.
board's discretion.
Yeah.
Of course, we wouldn't be able to go on private property to do it, so it's on
Yeah.
public property.
Okay, then. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you, Barry, and Elaine, and June, and Richard,
Mhm.
all for being here.
Yeah, a lot
Hard
of
to
good
get
stuff going on.
Hard to get everybody in the same room, but at least we're on the same Zoom.
We're on the same channel.
Screen.
Yeah.
In some ways, Zoom makes that easier.
Yeah, it does.
Yes. So,
Okay.
well, thank you very much, and I appreciate everybody's help.
Mhm.
Thank
Right,
you,
good night, everyone.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Happy
Good
New
night.
Year.
Yeah, Happy
You
New
too.
Year. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to move on to old business, and we had the food
Oh,
pantry.
no.
Oh, no.
Excuse me.
Chief Clark is here.
Chief
Chief
Clark's
Clark
here.
is-
Oh, okay, good, good. Chief Clark. All right.
How's that? How's
There
everybody?
he
There we go.
is.
There
How
you
was the
are.
holiday for everybody? Hope that everyone enjoyed it
Good.
very much.
Very good.
Good.
Yep.
It was quiet. I don't know how
A
else
nice
to define
socially
it.
distant day.
Oh, boy. Did you get those decorations up, Scott?
I didn't put them up. The teenager who's now 20 and his girlfriend put them up while we were gone, and they're around the house.
Oh, good.
I've not taken them down yet because once they're up, I don't think they should come down until you fit the 12th day of Christmas. On Epiphany is when they're supposed to come
There you go.
down. So
Mhm.
we
January
will not take
6th.
them down until next week.
Okay. So how are you, Chief Clark?
I'm doing very well. It's nice to see everybody. I don't have my usual report ready because it's kind of like monthly driven. And so I don't have all that data till like first couple of days in January for the December report. Things have been moving well. It's been pretty busy on the operational side. The ambulance has been extremely busy, and no serious incidents on the fire side to talk about. I keep my fingers crossed every day when I come in or when I go to bed every night. So it's like it's too cold, and it's want to keep everyone's property in good shape. We don't want to have any fires, so that's kind of like where we're at. But it's like we're kind of gearing up for winter operations with the trucks and also with the turnout gear. Everyone's got the warm gloves out. We've already had some tests, a couple of chimney fires. And it's just that time of the year, the things you deal with, and just roll the punches. And it's like, tis what it is.
Well, you haven't been to my house for a chimney fire, so that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing, Chris. Yeah. Yeah.
When we changed to a pellet stove, we stopped having chimney fires.
Yeah, those are much more efficient than the regular wood. Yep, you got to keep
Yep.
the wood ones clean and burn dry wood, and it's like there's a whole science to that. And I'm sure there's a lot of good going around the town here. I see a lot of wood stoves cranked up here, so people are really good at it because we haven't had many chimney fires. So there's a lot of veteran wood burners out there, which is a good thing to see.
That's good. All right. Is there any questions for Chief Clark?
Sounds good.
Nope.
Come on, Peg. The first time I've ever not been asked a question by you.
I'm looking, Chief. I'm looking. I'm going through your reports. I'm going through Dave's reports.
You
See if
gotta
I
be
can
careful
find
what you wish
something.
for, yeah.
This is true, my gift to all of you is a few questions tonight
Yeah,
so that
no, I
we can like
enjoy it.
giddy
They're
up
always good.
and all right, I have one
It's the
question.
Patriots.
I'm glad. I would be.
All right.
I would hate
One
to hit the
question.
leave button if you didn't.
Okay. How was Ava's Christmas?
Unbelievable. Yep. It's like, yep. I can't even tell you. Yep. It was first real one that she enjoyed stuff, and it's like, yep, it's pretty special.
Okay.
It is special, isn't it? The kids that age.
It makes all the stuff
Yeah.
that you do worthwhile. You know what I mean? To me, anyways. You know what I mean? So it's like, just comes in and just lights up the room. So it's like, or whatever she's doing. I taught her how to throw snowballs one day, so she's doing
Oh,
her
boy.
first snowball throwing contest. So it's like, yeah. So
Better watch out. She'll be throwing them at you.
that's
I
all right.
know.
Yeah, that's fine. But it's like, no, she's like a lot of fun, and just has yep, we have fun with her. Look
Well,
forward
good
to-
question, Peg. Good
Hey,
question.
you know what? It's, gotta find some light and fun in these reports. So no, I mean, I honestly cannot find a question to ask on the reports.
No. What do you call it? So I should have my December report sent to Mary by should be that first week in January, get it all, that and Dave's report. And it's like Dave's got some inspection activity going. They're getting ready to crank up some stuff up on Highland Street on that. I think it's a 55 or older up there that he's working really closely with Rich on. There's been a lot of work down at Highland Commons East in some of the tenant spaces are getting remade. There's an Acton Medical going up. They've spent a lot of time in, and another medical facility down there next to the Emerson Urgent Care. So it's like they all kind of drive a bunch of ambulance calls at the same time. So once they're done, the ambulance goes there. So interesting to see how that runs out. But nope, it's been busy. We're probably a couple of hundred calls this year over what we did last year. So even with the COVID slowdown in March and April, it's like picked back up and it's just been running solid. It's like been going well.
See, so Chief, you talk long enough. I found a question.
good.
On the response billing for EMS, and I know that you and June and Sharon and Margaret and probably a bunch of other people are working on. How are you feeling, with that we've got a good handle on it, that we're able to recoup some funds? I mean, obviously there's a statute of limitations, some we're just not going to get. But going forward, are you guys comfortable with how it's set in place and the data that you're getting back?
I think we're in a good place. I said, like you said, that the sad part is there's a lot of older ones that we
Yeah.
can't collect on, and we didn't have a really good number when we had our last working group meeting on that. So I could bring it to you to ask for for you to help write it off. So we're gonna probably bring one next month after the next meeting. But the group's been fantastic to work with, led by the TA. June's been awesome. The deputies there, everyone. So it's like we've all been working together, and it's like, and we're just playing. It's still still in the catch-up mode, just from back in the. I think we got 14 done, but we still playing catch-up back 15, 16, 17. So it's like it just takes some time. It's not something that we can do in a week. I know June spent a lot of time, very positive time with the company that she's dealing with, the First Finance, on the collections, and it's like, and we feel like the process to do it is in place. And once we're caught up with all the old ones, it'll flow really good for what you get. I think the percentages are lower than I'm used to seeing, but it is what it is. It's consistent. So that must just be what the Berlin model is. So it's like, and we move forward with that. And we, I know they've spent a lot of time internally with the personnel on the things that we need so we can maximize the billing when it gets coordinated by Sharon and sent to Coastal Medical. So it's like, and Sharon's done a fantastic job on the kind of the operation end of it to take all that information out and send it over to Kathy at Coastal Medical so that we're maximizing what we can bill for. So whatever we can, every penny that we can chase, we're chasing it. You know what I mean?
Cool.
You don't always get it because of there's a lot of factors in it that you don't get, but we try to get everyone that we can for the community, and it's a little frustrating some days because we think we should get more. We'll talk about it at our meetings, but the effort is there, and we're doing it the right way. So if for some reason, hopefully it improves. I don't know why the percentage is so low. I can't answer that question. And it's like, and no one has been able to yet. So it's like, but the working group is good. The guys on the street are doing their paperwork side of it. so we can maximize it. And Sharon does the coordination of all that paperwork for the billing. So I'm happy where we are. We just got to kind of get through the old
Pile.
instant responses and then just, we don't have to look back and like always, just want to look forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate looking back over my shoulder. So it's like, that's where we are though. You know what I mean? We just got to do it, get it done and kind of nose to the grindstone until it's done. And then we can just turn around and head north all the time. You know what I mean? Just into new territory and get it done.
Yeah, every day is a step forward, and appreciate everything that you've done to try and corral this and make it, a positive thing for the town. Whether it's $1 you collect or whether it's, 50 cents, it's $1 more than we had, and it's 50 cents more than we had. So, thank you. And thank you to everybody on that team.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's definitely been,
absolutely.
I can't impress upon you enough how much of a team effort it's been, led by the TA.
Oh, Mags.
Yay.
Yay.
Hey, look.
No, it's true.
We're all doing our parts.
No, it's true.
There's a lot of work to it.
Yep. There's a lot of moving parts to it.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much, Chief
Thanks,
Clark.
Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
All
Safe
right,
drive
take care,
home.
everybody. Happy New Year to everybody if I
Thanks,
don't
Chief.
see
You
you.
too.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
you too, you too.
Okay, now we're going to move on to old business. And we have the food pantry on the agenda.
I, through the chair, the food pantry expressed a sincere appreciation for the board's interest in possible monetary donations, but they have declined. And just in summary, they do appreciate the space that they've been given at the town offices and hope that if there is a possibility to grow within this building, that we might be able to work with them on additional space near their food pantry. So that's where that stands at this point. Of course, it's the board's decision as to whether or not funding should be included in the FY22 budget, but the food pantry has responded to the board's generous consideration.
Well, I think maybe this is the time to that we should take to encourage the public to donate either food or make a monetary donation to the Berlin Food Pantry. And there is also the Amazon Smile, which I am signed up for, and my donations go to the food pantry. There's a certain percentage of your purchase that goes to a charitable organization of your choice. So I would at least encourage the public, if they can help, that's several ways that they can help.
I read their email. I don't fully understand it, but I'll respect it. I think it's odd that they're soliciting donations and then turn this one down, but we'll move on. I would still like to explore, and maybe then that's not for this fiscal year because there's other things going on, but that the line item in the budget that currently is for that goes money towards wheat is sort of broadened to a bigger category of supporting Berlin families in need, and that we contract services using those funds to help Berlin families throughout the year.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else on that item?
I don't have anything else on that item.
Okay. Then I guess we'll move on to the fiscal year 2022 budget updates.
I'm going to try to be very methodical about this. You've got 25 lines tonight. The first, again, these are expense lines. Some you'll hear have some opportunity to be reduced. Some don't have a long enough expense history, such as the LED streetlights, for example, that we can do that. However, there is a possibility in the future that line may be able to be revised once we do have a good expense history on them. So the first one is moderator. This is very low hanging fruit. There's an $85 request. This is level funded from FY 21 and FY 20. And I don't know how many years prior to that. This covers the moderator's dues to the Moderators Association and moderators meetings he attends. I should also note that several of these expense lines cover meetings that departments or town officials attend, and those meetings have largely been suspended throughout COVID. So we're not seeing expenses. We do hope that meetings and workshops and seminars will begin again once COVID ends, but there's been very restricted expenditures because of COVID. Okay, and the next,
Margaret, do you want to share your screen, or is it easier?
I'm
just
actually
to-
looking at paper. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I pulled it up on my, I
Yeah,
pulled
it's
it up
in-
on my
Got
screen
it?
so I can follow along.
Yep,
Okay,
same.
I don't know if
So I've already scrolled that most of these are just level funded though. There's very
most
few
of
that
there's there's only, I think there's only one that has grown by $5. Another one maybe $20. But we'll,
I was gonna say,
we'll go through them anyway. I'll try
Sure.
to make it quick if there really aren't any concerns. But I do want to give a little bit of a background on a couple of them. All right, so the next item here is Select Board Consulting expense line. So as I explained last week, in FY 20, the Board of Selectmen's expense line was $18,290. I believe a portion of that was to cover the town administrator consulting, search, something or other. There was $65,000 in legal expenses. So the two of those lines combined were $83,290. In FY 21, we reorganized those lines so that consulting services are really captured in a consulting line rather than under a legal services line. So the Select Board's expense line was reduced by $10,000 to $8,290. Well, this is going to be reflected in the level funding this year too. The consulting line, which was a new line, was funded at $20,000, and the legal expense line was reduced from $65,000 to $50,000 for a grand total of $78,290. There is a possibility, and I am trying to work through some of our consulting expenses to see if we may be able to trim them somewhat, but I have not reached that point yet. So there might be future opportunity to reduce the consulting line by a little bit. I just don't have that number yet. The next is the town accountant's expense line. In FY 20, the approved amount was $9,300. The amount requested for FY 22 is level funded from the FY 21 reduced amount of $9,040. This expense line covers a multitude of things, including the financial software costs. It includes the purchasing of general office supplies, many of which are shared with other departments. It's almost, but not quite, a central services concept. This covers meetings and accountant certification school. And I think those are the main things. The largest nut here, of course, being the VADAR system, which is the town's accounting financial system. So that's what's in the accounting expense line, and that is requested to be level funded. Audit, this is the independent audit that is conducted every year. So the audit line covers that cost and only that cost. In FY 20, that line was budgeted at $31,000, but it still included a portion of services for the school. So in FY 21, we negotiated the amount down to $26,000, and the request is to level fund that reduced amount.
When was the last time we changed audit companies?
Not since I got here. I'll have to look into that for you because I do not know.
Because that's one of those things that every now and then it is good to switch companies around just because you get sort of too familiar with each other. Yep. I mean, I don't believe anyone's done anything wrong. I think I've read some of their reports over the years when I was on FinCom, and I thought they were very well done. So, but I don't think we've changed in a while.
Okay. The next expense line is the assessor's expense line. As with the accountant's expense line, this also covers financial software costs for Point Software, Patriot Properties, and Vision. This also covers mileage reimbursements, assessors meetings and classes, mileage, filings at the Worcester County Registry of Deeds, and a host of other items. In fact, in this past year, there were costs that were incurred from this line that were shared costs with the select board's expense line for consulting services related to solar pilot agreements. And that is requested to be level funded at the current year's expense line. The next is personnel expenses. Okay, this is the big one, a $25 increase request. Now, that's because the cost of dues has increased. It actually increased this year, and I pitched in the $25, and the personnel committee thought they requested themselves next year. So I said, you go right ahead. You request the $225 for the MMHR dues, and that's all that's included in that line. Tax titles. This was significantly reduced from FY20. In FY20, the budgeted amount was $20,000. In FY21, it was reduced to $5,000, and the request is for level funding at that reduced amount for FY22. Additionally, Dennis is going to be requesting, or he's interested in having the town establish a tax title collections revolving fund under Chapter 60, Section 15B of the general laws. This would alleviate, over time, this would alleviate the need to budget in the general fund for tax title expenses, because tax titles would essentially pay for themselves. So any fees that would be collected on the redemption of tax titles and the sale of real property acquired through foreclosures of tax titles, I'm reading from the statute here, would be credited to the revolving fund, and the funds that are deposited into that revolving fund could be expended for the purpose of tax title work and things of that nature, and the filings that are associated with it. So I think Dennis's interest is trying to wean us off of a general fund expenditure and putting it into kind of an encapsulated revolving fund. But that said, the request is for $5,000 level funded from the reduced FY21 amount. Town clerk expenses. Last year, the town clerk budget absorbed the $600 annual cost for dog licenses that had formerly been included in the dog license revolving fund. That revolving fund was closed out. There was actually a very, very large balance in that. So in FY21, the expense line increased a bit, and the request is for level funding at that amount for FY22. So that's a request of $2,845 in town clerk expenses. Other expenses from that line include the costs for bonds for the town clerk and the assistant town clerk, membership in the Mass Town Clerks Association, office supplies, postage, and things of that nature. The next is elections. Tell me if I'm taking too long. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm getting a lot of blanks.
What page are we on?
Oh no! Oh no!
And I'm assuming just because I've done the budget for so many years, I know what a lot of these go for. So I'm hoping other people are getting more out of this.
Well, do you want me to just say level fund, or how do you want? I'm happy to do that.
Is there any highlights that?
I mean, these are all small dollar amount items that haven't changed.
Right.
So Margaret,
electricity has gone up $2,000. But
electricity has gone up $2,000. The reason for that is because electric rates are unpredictable. We do hope eventually that will come down if we can do some more renewable energy work.
Well, we saw that over the summer with everybody, their electric bills doubling and tripling and quadrupling. I mean, Margaret, the major questions, honestly, that I have on the reports, with the exception of the intergovernmental expenditures, because we know, Tohoto, Assabet, they're always going to run late. But what about these departments that have not submitted?
We just got some submissions today. Not some. We got one department's submission today. We are awaiting, we've drafted and are awaiting the final submission, review and submission on another one of the departments. Peg, we're really very, very close to having all of the municipal submissions in.
All right. No, I was just
And
wondering, you know.
that
what-
is outstanding, because I know years that we didn't even have that by mid-February, so.
Oh.
Oh,
yeah.
last couple of years, Scott, we've been,
Yep.
pounding the pavement about this.
Yeah,
I
no,
wasn't sure how we could penalize late submitters except give them 0 since everyone has been asked to do level funding anyway.
well, and that's,
Zeros.
and that's was going to be my question is that, you're late. You should have had it in, and you missed it. So as a result of not getting it in, you're going to be flat. You're going to be level funded. So if you wanted to try and get something in there for an increase due to XYZ reason, sorry. So, I know that maybe sounds kind of mean, but again,
Yeah, but
the people on these committees, this is not their first rodeo. They've been asked for it. They know when it's due. It's due just about the same time every year. So to me, flat them, Margaret, sorry.
Well, and we can automatically do that.
Yeah, but sometimes flatting them's not in the direction where we want to go as a town. And so I want to make sure we're not being penny wise upon foolish. We're not jeopardizing projects that we think are priorities, in doing this. But it does mean we probably end up with more say over what's going to happen with the budget than we would if one was submitted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's penalizing, could be penalizing the town, sort of.
And that really over half our budget is intergovernmental expenses. And really, until you have
Right.
those in, you have no idea what we really need from everybody else.
Yeah. And as I say, I'm
I'm
not
just
concerned
I'm
about
very
those.
I'm very pleased that that nearly all municipal departments complied with the level funding directive request. So do you want me to even name the expense lines, or do you want to just there are 25 of them here? Do you want to just any questions on them?
Well, so again, the weed assessment line, I have said from we started doing goal setting back months ago, is that I would like to reevaluate that one, both as a dollar amount and a naming convention. And it's up for approval tonight at the flat dollar amount of the previous year. And I'm still not happy with that.
Well, can we leave that one out of our vote?
Yeah.
Maybe
that's what I'd like to do for tonight.
Yeah. And maybe what we need to do is look into it further. I mean, how did we get that line item into the budget?
That's a great question.
Because it seems to violate the rules that we say exist for line items like that.
Well, June's here. Can we ask June? Maybe she has some.
It was in the
knowledge.
budget when I joined FinCom back in 2010.
It's always been in the budget as far as I can remember.
And it's a good use of money. The thing is, I'm not questioning its value. It's
you want to broaden
I both want to broaden it, and as you've pointed out, we probably should have a method to how this money gets decided to be spent. And so, if there was a line item that was, again,
and how much of a benefit
going to Berlin families in needs, and that I think that $4,000 number has been $4,000 as long as I can remember. And both the cost of everything they provide and the number of people who need the need have probably gone up. And so,
how much of a benefit is it to the town of Berlin? We have no idea.
We just received.
I think they do have. I was gonna say, I think they did a report that says that. But
they provided service levels last week for the year December 2019 through November 2020. But it doesn't include all the services provided. It included food pantry services, cafe visits, and case management numbers. The executive director said they want to begin doing meals deliveries to homebound seniors, and they'd like to work with the Council on Aging to make this happen in the coming year. So it's just a little addition that she included in the email.
So do we need to ask June anything? Maybe she has some knowledge, her 30 years plus of how it got there.
Sorry, the only information I have is that it's always been there.
And you know what? Sometimes you put something, a group of selectmen might put something in the budget for some reason,
Yeah.
and then it morphs into something else. So I don't know.
Well,
And again, they do some great work. They're a United Way organization. They do serve the town
Right.
of Berlin. I want nothing, I have nothing bad to say about them at all.
Right.
I just think there are other areas where it could be helping town of Berlin, that those other areas could also still be within weeds, or other. We have several good organizations going on in this town that are helping Berlin residents, and just because we're putting it in the budget doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be spent. I think if we put it in the budget, it allows it to be spent. It allows us to come up with the process. But if it doesn't happen, it's on a $15 million budget. I go back to thinking that $7,500 for Berlin families in need is less than 1/100% of the budget. And so
I think that these are some of the little items that should just be relooked at. They're things that have been there forever, and it just may be time to reinvestigate as to what they actually are. Because, like, I think there was another one there for the Worcester Transit that we were paying through the cherry sheet, and that was never questioned either. And I'm finding now they're not charging us. So,
right.
just it's the little things that we need to take the time out to actually just investigate.
So
I'm curious
perhaps,
to know how long.
yeah,
I'm curious to know how long it's actually been there. Forever.
it has.
I should
As far as
also,
can
I
remember.
should also note that with the host community agreements, the town has negotiated or is negotiating, there could be a potential opportunity there for funding some of these types of services with a little more discussion with the applicants.
Well, I think probably we ought to do some research of some kind on wheat and whatever else, and put it on another meeting agenda to discuss.
Yep.
I've noted a hold on that one.
Yep. But the other, as you said, there was 25 total, so there's 24 left.
I think so.
All the other ones you have highlighted for tonight, I am totally fine moving approval or recommendation of.
Okay. Anybody have
Well,
any
you're
other
a second.
questions?
You have you're seconding, or you have a question?
No, I'm seconding. I'm waving.
Yay. Okay.
Oh, Eloise has her hand up. Excuse me, Chris. Eloise.
All right. Eloise?
This, for wheat, it happened because there was the downturn in economics.
A
They were
downturn?
serving a lot of people. Alice, she lived on Randall Road. Oh, what's her name? Alice Kidder. She was a trustee on wheat, and she got up at town meeting, and the town said, yes, we'd like to help. We have no other social services in Berlin, so we were
And do you
certain
happen,
people to go to, huh?
do you happen to know when that was?
I almost think like the early 90s.
Oh.
It was an economic downturn in the 90s.
They're cyclical.
Yes, they are.
Let's just hope this next one doesn't go into a depression.
Oh,
Oh.
All right. Well,
Words don't make it so, Peg.
No. Eloise, for a minute when you said something broke, I'm like, the dam broke? So that tells you how good my hearing is. Okay.
all right. Well, that was helpful, Eloise.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we've got a motion on the table and a second. Any other comments before we take a vote? Okay, then we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
That's unanimous.
thank you.
Good job, Margaret, again.
Thank you.
Appreciate
I
everything.
just like filling in those dates and those columns.
Yep.
I know. As you say, that you've picked
And-
off a lot of the easy ones, so
I know. I did
the
the
next
same thing
one's-
last year.
Yeah. The next
Yeah.
ones
Do
are
we
gonna
have-
get ugly.
Any idea when we're gonna get even preliminary numbers from any of the schools?
Yes, so Berlin Boylston has actually done a preliminary budget presentation, but they have not shown the amounts allocated for each town. So we have a partial picture of that. So we don't have exact numbers yet. Assabet, I received an email recently about possibly discussing Assabet's FY22 intended budget. So I haven't gotten any more information on it yet, but I mean, they're obviously working on it. So I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
Okay. So shall we move on to new business?
Mhm.
And the calendar year 2020, the local licensing authority annual report to the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission.
This is the required annual report to be
Yeah.
sent to the ABCC.
Looks.
Thank you,
Pretty
Mary. Good
straightforward.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would look very good. Do we need to take a vote to approve, or it's already been sent, or? No. Vote to approve? Okay.
Approve and roll call. See,
All
I'm good at
right.
the hand signals.
Sorry, I'm trying to, there's under amendments, licensing amendment says 3 asterisks next to it. And I'm trying to figure out, that usually means for a footnote, but I don't see what that, I mean, I know what those were, but
It's that,
referenced again later.
it's amendments are new for the
Okay.
town. Charge
Okay.
for liquor license amendments, so I'm just noting
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
And seconded.
All right, we'll take a vote. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Motion passes. We're down to board questions and comments.
There's just, excuse me, through the chair,
Oh.
there's just one additional item that came within the
Cabela's.
last 48 hours, and that's the
Oh.
Cabela's
Yep.
Class 1 license.
Oh, okay. I did see that, I think. Yeah.
It's in the folder.
So do you,
Right.
do I hear a motion to approve that?
So moved.
And seconded.
Sorry, beat you
No
to it.
worries.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
That's unanimous.
Can I just note really quickly that it's changing the corporate entity that holds the license? Otherwise, the police chief is not, he's already weighed in that he's okay with this, but it just changes the actual technical license holder. There's still DBA Cabela's.
Yes,
Yep.
I did see that.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. Board questions and comments. I
We have Vanna over there in the corner.
Our COVID relief funds purchased 20 of these signs to be put up so that everyone is reminded,
Wear a
wear a
mask.
face mask, wear a mask.
Margaret, where are they gonna go?
Wherever, it's any prominent
Oh.
places.
Yeah, how
What is
about
that?
how about on the door at the
Yeah.
gas station?
Yeah,
Yes,
can
how about
I,
in front of
yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts?
Can I take one and stand down Dunkin' Donuts and like
you can
wave
take
it
one.
at people?
Yeah.
Take one.
Oh, you should have told them that you and all your friends will not be
Oh,
there.
well, again, I understand where they're coming from, and I told
do.
them the offset. I'm not looking for like, oh, well, here's 25 free dollars. Go get. I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want you to fix the problem. I want people to start wearing masks. Or you starting to say, sorry, no coffee, go away. But can't tell a business how to run their business, so
Right.
I will just take mine elsewhere.
All right. Well, I did have one question. I'm looking at the calendar for January, and it looks like we have a coffee talk on the 14th.
Oh, we just had
No,
one.
we just had one in
That's
December.
what I thought. That's what I thought. So I didn't know if my calendar was wrong.
It's you.
When is the next one scheduled? Thanks.
It's you.
March, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was like the end of every quarter.
That's what I thought. Because I thought it seemed like it was, and that's what I was going to ask you is, do we really want to do another one in January? All right. So well, if somebody sees that we have one scheduled, let me know.
Mary, did you put together a list? Again, I make crap up in my head and I think that it's real. Did I not see a list
Of,
coffee talk dates?
I'll pull them up. I can go find them. They are quarterly though.
Okay. So that would make it, what was it, November?
So sometime in March.
Okay.
Not
Yeah, March.
March 11th
That's a Thursday, so the second Thursday.
and
Yep.
June 17th are the next two.
Oh, so do you want to bump a regular meeting otherwise? Because you have other meetings scheduled for March. Do you want that to replace a meeting? Do you know what I mean?
That does replace the meeting that week, Mary. That replaces the Monday meeting that week.
Right. So it would replace the 8th. We would
Yes.
not have a meeting on the 8th. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
Correct. You'd be
Okay.
meeting on the 11th for coffee talk.
Does that work for everybody? It's kind of hard.
Sure.
Oh,
I some expect would keep that Monday meeting with the idea that we're going to cancel it because it's easier to decide that week before that we don't have enough business, we don't have business and we want to cancel it than it is to add one more at
right.
the last minute. But either one works because I can't, my long range forecasting is 10 days out at this point. Anything beyond 10 days, world is too strange. Don't understand what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Isn't
I
that
agree.
the truth?
I agree with Scott.
In June when?
You want me to post one
June
for
17th.
Thank you.
For what?
I
Mary?
posted things today all the way through the month of March.
Right.
You open meeting law projection that you
Oh,
made.
yes. Yeah,
So
you could post one for March 11th.
And I'll leave it up there until we know different.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Any more board questions and comments?
Margaret, Senator Tran reminded me, and I write the note here, the court improvements in South Commons. What's the status of that? Do we have contracts? Do we
Well,
have
it's
bids?
interesting you
Do
should
we-
ask. It is still pending. So it's still wrapped up in the funding bill.
Okay, okay.
However, it's not going to be done their mid fiscal year. So
Right.
next week, at your meeting, you're going to have the Senator-elect John Cronin and Representative-elect Meg Kilcoyne attending your meeting. So that might be something that you'd want to discuss with them about keeping that moving.
And think of other questions also.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, seeing that we have no reason for executive session this evening, I guess I would call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.